topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show where we bring you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. We want to say hello to all of our listeners and viewers in the beautiful state of California, Nevada, New Mexico, Arizona, and Colorado. We have got a fabulous show for the next 50 minutes. You know, we have our demographics. We have a lot of homeowners, condo owners, business owners, and, you know, especially with what California has gone through, it is whenever you've got damage to the home and you have to deal with that dreaded insurance company, I have a way that you don't have to put up with them because you know they're going to try to pay you the least amount possible. We have two experts on with us today from Crown Adjusting, and I hope we answer all your questions. You're going to learn about what a public adjuster is. And let me welcome to the show. This is his first show with us, though Crown has been with us for a while. We want to welcome Joseph Fernandez, and we're hoping Robert Crown is no Robert Crown yet. Well, you know what? He must have gotten busy, but he can join us anytime during the show. Joseph, tell us about Crown Adjusting.
Sure. Well, thank you for welcoming me on the show, Steve. It's really an honor and a pleasure to represent Crown Adjusting and to explain to the public, you know, what we do. Robert's probably on his way in. He's more than likely running around, just like I was when I wasn't able to appear on the show. Because we've been very, very busy. But you know, one of the things is we try to do is we always try to make time for our clients and make sure that we're there when they need us most. So with that being said, you know, Crown Adjusting is a public adjusting firm. We're local to the Bay Area. We serve all of California, and we are essentially advocates on behalf of the homeowner, as we refer to the insured. And we advocate for them so that they have a chance to stand up against Goliath, as the insureds typically are David when they're faced up against a big giant company. And we're there to essentially level the playing field on their behalf when we advocate for them to make sure that the insurance company treats them fairly and equitably.
That is the best way to put it, Goliath and David. That is totally for sure. So I told you, we got a lot of questions. People know your show was coming on. You know, are you surprised that there's so many people still don't know what a public adjuster is?
You know, I'm not surprised because people don't typically hear about us until they feel like they're backed up in a corner where they've given the insurance company the benefit of the doubt that they're going to treat them fairly. And as they start to feel like they're getting jerked around, that's when people start going to family, friends, research online, and they start saying, what are my options? Most of the time, people that aren't aware, they think of an attorney. And although attorneys are great and a lot of issues with insurance coverage. The problem is they take a rather large piece of the pie and very more often than not leave the insured with very little to rebuild. So that's where we come in, where, you know, our percentages are more reasonable, and we also have a lot more to add in terms of value. And we're also experts when it comes to insurance policy, whereas most of the times the attorneys will bring us in due to the expertise that we can bring onto the case. So,
You know,
yeah, I'm
I
not
got to,
surprised.
yeah, you know, because several of the questions were, what does a public adjuster do? And, you know, you think about flooding, that's the first thing comes to mind. But there's so many other areas, though, that you cover, aren't there?
That's right. Yes. So, first and foremost, fire, water damage. So, if you know you're home or you're away from home on a vacation, and unbeknownst to you, the supply line in your upstairs toilet bursts, you come home, you open the door, and water just comes rushing out. Now, that's what we refer to as sudden and accidental water damage. There's also tree falls. Trees, you know, all over California are falling due to the inclement weather we've been having with all the rains and the storms. And those trees, I mean, they're you know, hundreds and hundreds of pounds falling and exerting that pressure onto a roof structure. It's going to create damage. So there's that. There's also theft, vandalism, and there's also collapse, car crashes when a car loses control, crashes into a building. So you name it, for the most part, when it comes to property as well as businesses that can also have, you know, damages to their property as well, we cover it.
Yeah, because I know we had a couple people wrote in about, you know, if there's a flood, you have a business and there's a flood next door, not necessarily your business, but next door, and that all seeps in to your business. That's where you all step in too.
Yeah, that's what we call subrogation. So a lot of people think, you know, kind of apply it to simplistic methods where we all understand really well is car insurance. You know, someone hits you, they're at fault. Your insurance company is going to pay you, but then they're going to go after the person's insurance company who is at fault to reclaim the money and essentially reimburse themselves. Same thing happens when you have a property where next door, let's just say, you know, a fire starts in their garage and the fire spreads to your house, the flames jump over. That means that the insurance company, my insurance company, would go after the house whose fire started at and say, you know, hey, we're going to pay our customer, but after we're done paying you 300, 400,000, we're going to go after the insurance company whose person's fault it was, and we're going to get our money back. And in most cases, subrogation claims are a little bit more in favor of the insured because the insurance company is at ease that for the most part, they're going to get their money back.
Well, we also got someone who wrote in who found the show last month for the first time, loved the show, and then he wants to know, what about mold? Does that fall under the auspice of what you do, especially California, because you're on the water?
Yeah, mold is a very tricky. We call mold the bad word in insurance company, and there's a reason why. The reason why is because in most policies, mold is limited in coverage, sometimes not even covered, but it has a limit, and the limit is $5,000, sometimes 10. So if you attribute your damage to mold, they're going to say, oh, sure, no problem, we'll cover you for mold. And then lo and behold, your mitigation company comes in, they write an estimate for, you know, $30,000 in mold mitigation. You submit that to the insurance company. The insurance company says, I'm sorry, Mr. Insured, but you have a limit of $5,000. Don't worry, we'll write you a check for $5,000, but the rest of it, you're going to have to figure out on your own. So that's why when we're involved, we say, do not say mold. Yes. Is there a potential for mold in water claims, in all water claims? Absolutely. But a lot of what we do is not so much, yes, it's our expertise in what we do, but it's also in what we don't say, because the way in which you handle the conversation can determine whether or not you're going to be covered fully or partially.
I tell you, somebody wrote in last month after the show. He wanted to know, why do termites not get covered?
You know, that's a good question. I don't have the answer to that. But looks like just in time.
Hey, there he is.
There's Robert. You can answer the question.
I'm here.
Hey,
So much for
let
the
me
virtual
introduce you to Robert Crown. Of course, Crown Adjusting. We knew that you got held up, and we just held the fort down for you.
Yeah, well, my protege is the technology whiz. I had a little bit of a problem, and then when I went to open up the browser, I was on Safari and not Chrome. So there you have it. But I found my way back home. I can answer.
We got a lot of questions, Robert. We were going over with Joseph. One of the questions came in right after your last show was, why aren't termites covered in homeowner plans?
Vermin and insects, infestation, a whole host of exclusions under most policies. The insurance companies, when they wrote these policies, they were thinking about, what are we insuring and what are we not insuring? And that's just one of the things that is not covered, along with any other very subtle, nuanced type of coverage for which you can't see, the naked eye can't see.
But it seems like with termites, because they can cause so much damage to the home, that at least, I mean, I can understand insects, but termites, down here in Florida, we have iguanas, and they do some major damage to homes. They don't cover iguanas either.
There may be some policies out there. They're oftentimes referred to as a difference in conditions, a DIC policy, that might cover certain infestations. I mean, livestock is not typically covered. Your pets aren't necessarily covered, but there's a whole realm of coverage that most agents are aware of, especially the ones who are selling policies to high wealth individuals that want to be covered for everything. I mean, the idea of guaranteed replacement costs, we hear about that periodically too, where it doesn't matter what your limit is, they'll cover you for the actual loss, which is very much the exception these days. So you don't see them anymore.
We got a email from a gentleman in New York, and I was like surprised at how did he hear about your show. But it turns out he owns a house in San Diego, La Jolla, I believe it was, and he is first of all, he wants to know, which we got a lot of letters, people wanting to know what's going on with the fires. I mean, we know the fires are out, but what's going on with all that property damage down in Southern California?
Well,
because we don't hear about it anymore.
It's still in the news, and for those that are going through it, they're dialed into a network of professionals that are there to help. LA is firmly behind, replacing the infrastructure, because these people who are going to rebuild their homes, they have to have hardware stores, and they have to have a way to function in a community that has just been devastated. So things are happening. And a lot of those folks who can afford to rebuild, who actually have almost enough coverage, a lot of them are planning to rebuild, and there's a response by the city and by FEMA to make it possible for people to borrow money, like the SBA, is pretty involved. It's at least a 3 to 5 year process, and most insurance companies in a FEMA declared event will give the policyholder the benefit of the doubt, especially if they don't have enough insurance. I suspect that many of the people who expect to get their policy limits will over the next several months, but it's still a slow go.
I think he wanted to know when to bring your company in.
Well, if it's someone that has a claim, you certainly want to talk to us before you get too far into it on your own. And that's how we essentially start every assignment. We want to look at what the coverage is, where we will be of the most help. And while the insurance companies are there to offer some assistance, they don't do what we do. Insurance companies are not public adjusters. So
I want both of you to comment on this. So I'm a layman. This is, and a lot of our listeners and viewers, we don't know plumbing from leaks to roofing. We know nothing about that. So when the insurance company gives us how much they will pay us, we don't really know if that's right or wrong. Why would a person not want to contact Crown Adjustment when you know what everything is valued at, rather than try to do it themselves like I did 12 years ago?
Well, you kind of said it in a nutshell. When someone is trying to figure out whether or not they would benefit by a public adjuster, that's a good question that I would ask the consumer. If the insurance company comes back and they offer you an estimate, or they come back with a number, and you get your own estimate of repair, you don't know that either one of those numbers and those estimates are correct. Having a skilled advocate that is familiar with not only the coverage, but how to present the numbers and to put your best foot forward is the reason why public adjusters get hired in the first place.
Well, we've talked about it on your show. I had what I considered major damage to my home when I was in Texas from a tornado. And I got to tell you, I thought I could handle it myself. I'm a great negotiator. I can deal with the insurance companies. First of all, folks, let me tell you, these insurance companies, they're very good at what they do. I don't care what kind of negotiator you are, they are so much better. And I was willing to settle for the $30,000 until a friend of mine said, "Why aren't you using a public adjuster?" And I know a lot of people listening to the show right now are going, "I don't know what a public adjuster does." Folks, I got to tell you, when I got a public adjuster, and I was concerned, am I going to have, after I pay him, am I going to be losing money? They got me $130,000, and the insurance company said they were only willing to go 30. That's why a public adjuster is so important. Am I correct, gentlemen?
Absolutely.
Definitely. I mean, that's the beauty about what we do is whether or not you have an estimate from an insurance company, that doesn't do anything for us in terms of give us any information on where our number needs to stand, because we're coming in with the mindset of we're being hired to perform our independent review on behalf of our clients, the insured, the policyholder. And the idea is that we're going to turn over every stone and we're going to leave nothing that we haven't looked at. And that's how we're able to add value, because the insurance company is hoping and banking that you're trusting them to do their due diligence, which, remember, it's skewed towards the insurance company. not for what they're entitled to. So just like you mentioned, you had an estimate written for $30,000. Well, we also have a client, and I'm not going to name names, but at a specific insurance company where their initial offer was $30,000. They have a 3,400 square foot home. And after I was done with my estimate, mind you, my estimate was at $330,000.
Wow.
So, and then people wonder, wow, well, why don't I just use the insurance company? Why do I have to pay you anything? And really the question to that is, well, how much money do you think you're leaving on the table? And most of the time people have no idea, just like you have no idea that your claim was going to be $130,000.
Mine, what you guys do, there's so many little small things, like they were going to give me so much for my floor, but turned out they were just going to repair the tile that was damaged. But the thing is that tile was no longer available. So you had to replace the whole thing. I would have never thought of that. They were going to do like a patch job, basically, is what I call it. And what Public Adjuster found was, no, that tile's not even available anymore. We have to replace the entire tile. And there's so many little small things that you all uncover.
Yeah, definitely.
We don't leave any stones unturned.
Yeah, one of the things is that, the insurance company, they subscribe to any type of database or tool that works on their behalf. One of those being ITEL. ITEL is a database that has all types of floorings cataloged, tiles, carpets, roof shingles, ITEL. And what they do is whenever they're there, they always make it a fact to take a sample, a piece of that flooring or roof or whatever's damaged, and they run it through their database to see if it's still available. So in the instance of what I just told you, the $30,000 claim that I'm now at $300,000, one of the reasons why I was able to get it up so high was because that flooring that they're claiming is still available is actually not available. And when they ran it through ITEL, it came back with inconclusive results, and yet they're still pushing the narrative that it is available, even though there's 6 options. So those are games that they play, and they're good at playing. And if it were up to the insured to try to make that argument, they wouldn't know where to turn. So that's why we're able to help them with that. But the continuous flooring, whether it's tile, whether it is wood flooring, vinyl, laminate, it presents a major problem with these claims, and we're there to clear it up and get what we need to do for our clients.
We just got a text in from Wiley, downtown Los Angeles. He said, I'm so glad there's a show out here like this. I am surprised it's taken so long. Well, we've been doing this show now for about 3 or 4 months on public adjusting. But he said, I just want to say this. I think it's horrible that insurance companies try to remove all the risk, whether they don't want to take care of flooding, and they just put themselves out where there's no risk at all. And it makes it that everything is in their favor. I just wanted you to read this during your show. People aren't real happy with their home insurance companies, are they?
No, it's a great instrument so long as you never have to use it.
Yeah. As long as you keep paying for it.
Really?
Is there anything? What's going on with the homeowners insurance companies now? We had read for a long time a lot of them pulled out, canceled policies. Are there companies coming back in now?
Yes, there's a bunch of new companies coming into the market in California, and there's been some adjustments in premiums to keep those that are here wanting to stay here. Like State Farm Insurance, it just got a rate increase because in California, insurance companies have to, at least the ones that are AAA rated, have to talk to the Department of Insurance before they raise rates. And so State Farm finally got the rate increase they were requesting, and I expect that to occur with many insurance companies in California.
You think that'll bring some of the insurance companies back to California?
Some, yeah, or new ones.
Oh, okay. I've got so many questions for you guys. I want to get started with that. I just wanted to get in because we had a lot of people wondering about what's going on in mainly in Southern California, because it seems like it's completely out of the news around the country now. We don't hear anything, and I know there's so many people that are suffering, and there's people wanting to know when the best time to bring a company like yours in, which I think we've addressed. So let's go on. Let's get started. Both of you can jump in. If a roof blows off in a windstorm and there's a lot of rain involved, there's water coming in from the walls and the ceilings on the main floor and the floor below, and it's also penetrating into the garage ceiling. What do you do first?
Do you want to try that, Joseph? You want me to comment?
Sure. I'll take a stab at it. So this is actually something that we are dealing with currently on a claim. I'm not going to name any names or insurance companies, but let's assume that this is a very common problem, especially in an area where there's a lot of high winds and flat roofs. So the most important thing here is whenever you have any type of a loss, especially one like this, you need to act as if you don't even have insurance and protect the property at all costs. Because at the end of the day, the worst thing you want to do is wait to take any action. Assume the insurance company is going to come in, on riding on their white horse to rescue you. They're not coming to rescue you. You have to act on your own volition, protect the property from damage. And in an incident like this, you want to try and prevent the water from spreading. You want to try to pick up as much of the water. You want to bring in a mitigation company to mitigate damages and prevent further deterioration of the home. And you want to try to get a company out there to do a temporary patch on the roof, whether that's a tarp, whether that's a waterproofing membrane, something to stop the leaking from happening. And then that buys you enough time until the insurance company is able to get there. In between that time that you're waiting, you're taking photos, you're taking videos, you're documenting everything. And hopefully by that point, the insurance company has made contact. They're aware of your situation, and they're starting to issue you advances to get this work done. Because yes, it does add up quickly, but if they see that you've taken swift action, there's more of a likelihood that they will try to work with you on the payments that you've incurred thus far.
Robert, were you surprised that a lot of people didn't understand what was actually in their policy?
Well, in terms of understanding how to read their policy or what they were covered for.
What they were covered for.
No, most people don't know what they're covered for until they have a loss. So in honesty, when they consult with us, we tell them first and foremost what they're insured for. And, most claims are covered generally. And when they're not, you've got to look at the coverage language, and the insurance company has an obligation to tell you why they're not covering it. But, Joseph, just in terms of wanting to maybe discuss the genesis of the claim, you really have to put your claim together, the insurance company's there to help, but they don't do it for you. So,
we get a lot of letters that people are really worried that if they hire a company like yours, that their insurance company will drop them. Do you hear that from clients?
yes, many people sometimes will call wondering whether they should even file a claim. And in this market, people are afraid. Normally I'll try to guide them a little bit. The decision to file a claim really would rest on how much insurance they have and whether or not the amount of loss exceeds their deductible. But that's what we have insurance for. And I don't think people should be afraid to, contact their insurance company.
Yeah, I
So
think that's
here's a
very
guy who says he had a $10,000 deductible, and he didn't know if the damage would exceed that. You want to know, should he report, and what does a public adjuster say? If there are a second or a third person, I ask, how do I decide whether to report it or not? That's what we're really talking about. Should they or shouldn't they report it?
Well, you do have if you have physical damage occurring as a result of, an accidental fire or a pipe breaks, it's wise to report it because the insurance company might ask you, especially if you decided to do the cleanup yourself and 3 weeks later you realize that you've got, hidden water damage that you didn't even know about. It would be more problematic to wait and report it because you have obligations immediately to mitigate that damage. One of the things about water claims is you have to figure out where that water is. And Joseph and I are working together on a claim right now that's quite challenging. Our communications with the insurance company are interesting, if not entertaining. And we wrapped our arms around it from the very beginning, but we got very little cooperation from the insurance company. So there's been a couple of changes in the protocol, for lack of a better word, the things that you do after a water loss to try to reduce it from further damage. We would have done a number of things had we had the insurance company's cooperation. Now we're talking and counseling our client to do what we know we need to do, whether we get the insurance company's blessing or not.
Is there a time period that once the insurance company, you report the loss to them, is there a time period that you have to make a decision? In other words, when they come to you, how long do they have to get back with the insurance company?
Well, if they're keeping their options open, they got to make a decision whether they're going to have professional help or not. But they shouldn't leave the insurance company in suspense because the insurance company will find their own ways to delay or maybe not even send somebody out. So when in doubt, notify your insurance company, notify your agent. If you had minor damage, maybe you'd want to get some advice from a public adjuster or even talk to the agent about next steps. But the obligation to let the insurance company know is important.
One thing I want to add too, going back to the question of, in the case of someone having a $10,000 deductible, which is fairly high, but also I'm sure pretty kind of common, is one of the things you can do if you're not sure whether it's worthwhile to involve or file a claim is, get a public adjuster to come out and look at the loss, number one, because if there's anyone who's going to give you a proper assessment of what we think the loss is worth, it's going to be a public adjuster because most of the times, most public adjusters don't work on claims that don't reach a certain threshold dollar amount. And so we'll know very quickly when we're seeing and we're looking at something, whether or not it's going to make sense to involve us. And that threshold for like someone like us is usually, $150,000 Whereas if it does fall under that $150,000, we've also been known to work on an hourly to advise and give advice so that we can kind of help them through the claims process. So
here's a great question. I just found your show today. I am a single woman living alone in a 2-story house. First question I have is, what if my toilet is leaking on the second floor? How do I stop it? And how do I keep from being taken advantage of by these, as you call them, Goliath insurance companies?
Probably not a bad idea to learn how to turn off the valves that service your toilet for starters. But you could call a plumber, and you certainly want to act swiftly so you're not dealing with a major problem. Fighting Goliath insurance companies? Well, I could tell you a lot of stories about how to do that, but that would, it would be like a saga.
Yeah.
Star Wars Episode 6.
You know what? I think we should do a show. You guys could write a book. I think we should do a show just on, we don't have to give anybody's names or insurance companies, but I think people would love hearing about stories because people go, man, that's exactly what I went through.
Well, most people can relate.
You'd be surprised. A lot of these stories border on, downright like fiction. It's like sometimes as we say, the truth is stranger than fiction with a lot of things that we deal with. And, Robert and I think to ourselves a lot of the time, like, how is this possible? How are these insurance companies possibly thinking, number one, how is this legal that they're acting in this way? And also in direct violation of the California insurance regulations, and just being downright incompetent, which is what we find ourselves saying when we're dealing with some of these adjusters that just have no common sense. And the only way we can think of it, all of this is intentional, is if it's all just by design, and these insurance companies are relying on these adjusters to play the dummy or, deny or delay so that we can eventually get tired, run out of energy, run out of gas, and then call it quits.
I know there's people out there, because somebody just wrote in, people out there who lost their house in the Palisades. Is that how it's pronounced?
Yep.
Palisades. That lost their home. And will your company be handling any of those cases?
Yes, to the extent that we can be of assistance to those folks. Many of them are not ready to hire a public adjuster, or they've been approached by several people and they're not convinced they need one. And in some cases, there are other people that are already out there who they've talked to. And there's many, many people in our industry servicing claims in Southern California.
Yeah, I think this text that we got in, he's basically saying, thank God for your show. He said, I think a lot of people would try to handle this themselves after listening to you both. There is no way I would allow myself to handle this myself. I will be contacting you. Since he just said that, and we are running your phone number underneath, but many of our people listen to on iHeart and Spotify. Give them your phone number.
Well, our numbers are in the scroll below, both our numbers, but the better way, or at least a way to get a closer look at us, is through our website, crownadjusting.com. And there's even a questionnaire that people can utilize to give us a sort of an abbreviation of their situation, and we'll get back to them.
We've been talking about California, but we announced at the beginning of the show, the show is also being heard throughout Nevada, New Mexico, Arizona, and Colorado. So maybe if you have a friend that might need a public adjuster, I think you're going to learn from this show. You do not want to handle this yourself. Let the experts, like at Crown Adjusting, handle it for you. Tell them they can contact them. We just gave the number. We are giving it out on our YouTube, but we do realize a lot of you listen on iHeart, Spotify, Pandora, and aren't watching. So we are giving out that number. And you can also contact us because Robert and Joseph are going to be with us every month. We do a complete 50-minute show. You can also text me at 954-336-3767 with if you've got a question you want us to ask the guys. You know, I'm wondering if a person has these really wet walls, how will they know strip the, I guess it's called the sheetrock from the wall or ceiling to help dry out their home?
I'll just mention this briefly, and Joseph can pick it up. The most important thing in these water claims is finding out where it is. If you report the loss to the insurance company and they recommend like a franchise water mitigation company, that's a company that comes in to dry the place out. The two things that I like to tell folks to ask for, they normally come in with moisture meters and they poke the walls, or they put a sensor up and it gauges how much water is behind the wall. You can also discover the extent of water through thermal imaging. So they use infrared cameras. We have one ourselves. That's really important. And we're having a good time with this water claim we're handling right now because this insurance company they don't have a clue what they're doing. Even if there's a standard for drying the building out and you can't meet that standard in a timely manner, you have a record of it because you've taken an infrared picture of it and you've mapped all the water in the house. So at least you can come back when the walls dry out. That doesn't mean you leave them in place. You could have mold behind the wall. So what we do is we come back, and we're doing it right now. We can't, the people that do this for a living will tell you just because it dries out doesn't mean you don't take it down and replace it. So that's the most important thing, is to find out where it is, where it's coming from, to stop it. And then you kind of have to worry about how much of this your insurance company will or won't pay for.
Here's another text. Boy, you guys are starting to get a lot of text. My friend in Texas' house was broken into, and there was a lot of damage caused. Do you see much of that in Southern Cal?
We see it here, Northern Cal. We see it in most places. People that have theft and vandalism claims, not unlike water claims, they're pretty tough to handle because you have to have evidence of what was taken. Sometimes the insurance company can look at the claimant as being complicit in having their stuff mysteriously disappear. You file a valid claim, and you feel like sometimes you think they're treating you like the criminal, but
Right.
It's a viable claim. The first thing you do if your house is broken into is you file a police report.
What kind of contractor should a person call, or should they let the insurance company decide?
Joseph, why don't you take that one?
So, most of the time when we think of contractor, we think of someone that kind of handles it from A to Z with permitting, with drawings, going to the building department, so on and so forth. In the case of fire damage or restoration that is needing to be done as a result of a covered loss, usually it's always great to gravitate towards a contractor that is skilled in doing insurance work. And the reason that is because they're kind of skilled at doing the work and knowing how to document it every step along the way. That's not to say that you can't use your own contractor. Say you have a family contractor you've been working with for years and you want to use them, that's fine. But the problem may arise when you get the bill at the end and you show it to the insurance company and they say, okay, that's fine. I can see that you've done work for excess amounts of money, but can you show me evidence of X, Y, and Z of water damage here or fire damage there? And if the contractor is used to just, starting work and not finishing up until they're done, you're going to be into a little bit of a jam. Now, from there, going back to what, go ahead.
Was that a question?
Not sure if Steve's frozen.
Well,
It's coming back on.
It's coming back on. You can pick up where you're left off. Dealing with contractors is challenging enough, but it's important that there's a buy-in by the insurance company. And, when we approach people, one of the questions comes up is, well, why shouldn't I just let a contractor handle it? And you can do that, but you have no guarantees that the insurance company is going to agree to pay their cost of repair any more than, you trying to go out and prove your loss. So it's important to have some accountability and make sure the insurance company plays catch up. We advocate for the consumer, we advocate for the condition of the house, and we're not really beholden to a contractor. And we think that, we can add value regardless. And, if there's more money in the claim, it's safe to say the consumer has more participation in the choice of contractors too.
Yeah. And the other thing too is, like, as we see a lot of the time, Robert, the insurance company will send their flavor of the day contractor out to do their bidding. And a lot of time, this is not in favor of the policyholder, the homeowner, because essentially they're writing to do the work based on the amount of money that they see fit, or they choose to do the work and they write an estimate that's actually comparable based on the costs. Like, for example, the Bay Area, where materials and labor are astronomical, they submit that estimate to the insurance company. The insurance company sits on it, and when they finally review it, they start to strip it down to the bare metal. And then by the time you get it as the insured, it's $100,000 to $200,000 lighter than what it was before, and that happens far too often.
I'm sorry, on this side we had some difficulties.
So
I've always saved this question to the last, but we've got so many new people who are joining the show. And whoever wants to jump in, why should I hire Crown Adjusting? It's got a big smile out of Robert.
Why shouldn't you? You're a nice guy.
No, you are.
You should hire us because you don't know what you don't know. And having someone pilot the effort of just figuring out what they owe you for takes a lot of the burden off your shoulders. It really does. So, ultimately, someone's got to be advocating for themselves, and it should be someone that knows what they're doing.
And not just that too. Another thing that's really important is a lot of public adjusters, sometimes they get too big for their own sake and what they can handle. And then they'll assign guys that will actually go out there to sell the job. Whereas really they're just sales guys and they're handing it to someone in the office. Robert and I are public adjusters, but we're also public adjusters that not only sign jobs up, but we also do the work. So we understand just the amount of work and dedication it takes, and also the amount of difference that every single claim requires and the attention that it requires, because there are no two claims that are the same. There's not a one-stop shop, one-size-fits-all solution to any one of these claims. They require their own solutions, their own set of problem solving. and set of solutions to require so that we can get to the finish line, which is resolving the claim.
It's not really just about, it's not just about money, Stephen. It takes an enormous amount of time to put these claims together. And not that it's the greatest selling point in the world, because most people are only interested in one thing, how much money you're going to get them. But if they were able to look at the amount of time that one would spend figuring out how to present their own claim, what the requirements are to put it all together, just the time alone would be reason enough to consider having someone like Joseph or myself represent them. And
hey, you do a lot of work before you see your first nickel, even if you do receive it, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Well, let's your show goes by so fast, even we've extended it. Tell people how they can reach you.
You can reach us through our website at www.crownadjusting.com. Our numbers are below. My number is 415-999-5519. And Joseph can be reached at 925. Where is that number? It's coming right up.
361-2994. And one thing I want to leave you guys with something to ponder on. So tax season's just about wrapping up, right? Everyone's sending everything to, their respective states as well as the IRS. So imagine a world where you had to rely on the IRS to do your taxes. You wouldn't dare do that, right? That's why you hire CPAs. You hire CPAs to do their job. They prepare your taxes and they submit it to the IRS. We are like the CPAs for an insurance company. We submit our numbers. We don't rely on the insurance company to submit them for you. That's the difference.
And you shouldn't rely on the insurance company either.
Guys, thank you so much. Hey, if you missed part of the show today, you can go back to iHeart's podcast or Spotify. Today's show and all of their shows you can go back and listen to. And you guys will be back again with us next month. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for having us, Stephen.
Sounds good. Thank you, Stephen.
And that's Crown Adjusting. Folks, I'm telling you, they've been with us for a while now. And I got to tell you, I love doing their show. That's it for us today. Thank you, Juan, for all your great work. We'll be back again with you next week with more Ask the Experts.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.